And it's the beginning portions of summer, and it's a good time. We're still fighting trying to get our garden planted due to the wet conditions. But maybe you don't have ground in which to grow in and you still want to have a garden. Well, you can certainly do that by growing in containers. And we're going to go over 10 vegetables in which grow very successfully in containers that you can start this weekend or right now, whenever you're able to do such.
Right. So tomatoes grow really nice in containers. You do want to, and with any container, you want to make sure that you have good drainage.
Right, and it's adequate size for the crop in which you are growing. We just can't grow a tomato in a 1-gallon grow bag, a traditional indeterminate or determinate tomato. Now, there are tiny Tim tomatoes that grow about 16 inches high that do very well in a 1-gallon grow bag. There's exceptions to all the rules. We recommend, and we grow a lot of our produce in containers as well as the ground, and we use root maker grow bags and raised beds. It's a very beneficial product in which you can grow, and they have multiple sizes from 1 gallon all the way up to 60-gallon and square raised pop-up beds as well.
Right.
So let's talk about some of these most common vegetables in which you can grow in containers. And before we get, what do we want to fill our container with?
You want to fill it with a really nice potting soil mix, something that has a granular fertilizer, like a slow-release fertilizer, or you could just do straight compost. And
compost has plenty of nutrients in it, and you can add fertilizer, Dr. Earth fertilizer, at the time of planting, which is recommended because these plants are heavy feeders and do require feeding throughout the growing season. So, number one, many people are going to know this is coming, tomatoes. Tomatoes you can grow very successfully in a container. Now, we want to grow how big, people always ask, how big of a container do I need? Well, the answer is how much space do you have available?
Right. Tomatoes, especially the indeterminate variety, could use more nutrients. So you definitely, if you have a bigger container, it's not a bad idea. But a 5-gallon bucket-sized container is good for tomatoes.
Or that's equivalent to a 10-gallon grow bag. The measurements are a little different between dry and wet, but that's what we're looking at when it comes to that. And even a half of a whiskey barrel would be adequate, because a determinate gets, 2 to 4 feet tall, roughly, give or take.
Right.
An indeterminate will grow, we've had them grow up to 6-7 feet tall before, very successfully, because they will grow until you kill them or the weather kills them. So keep that in mind. And the cherry variety seems to be more prolific because they don't take as long to produce. And you can get 200 to 500 cherry tomatoes off of one plant during growing season if the conditions and your nutrients in the soil is all in good working shape there.
Right. So then we have peppers. You could grow 2 peppers per 5-gallon bucket size or 10-gallon grow bag
Now,
size.
why is that? Why would we cram them in 2 and a 5?
Peppers are friendly plants, so you want to grow them next to each other. That way their leaves can touch when they're more growing. They like to have a companion or a friend around.
And we still do need to feed the soil.
Oh, definitely.
We want to feed the soil, not feed the plant, because when we feed the soil, and this, we start out with, in containers or raised beds, we're starting out with a good mix. Whether it's a compost mix or potting soil mix, we're starting out with something rather than just ordinary ground soil in the backyard. So we've already got a leg up on the fight here. And we do want to add fertilizer as required by the recommended rate on the back of the package a couple of times throughout the growing season, especially in containers, because the leaching out from rain and watering, leaching out is the water taking that nutrient out of the container and flushing it out, just the natural progression that it happens. In the ground, you don't get that as much because there's not a bottom to the ground, essentially, and the microorganisms can recirculate some of that back up into the root zone of the plant.
Right. So that's, herbs. Herbs are good. Now, herbs, you don't necessarily have to grow in a 5-gallon bucket, but the reason why we kind of refer to a 5-gallon bucket, because it's a visual, most people can visualize that. People have easy access to those. So you can grow some in a 5-gallon bucket, but you can also grow them in a smaller, hanging basket.
5-gallon bucket, if you do choose to use a 5-gallon bucket, we want to put drainage holes in it, and we want to make sure that 5-gallon bucket is food grade. We don't want to go down to the local oil change shop and get a 5-gallon bucket that had 10W30 in it, because that has leached into that plastic.
Right.
There are food grade plastic buckets.
Right. Sometimes even if, like a local restaurant, we picked up a bunch for $1 each at a restaurant one time when we were out giving talks. So you can find them at restaurants. Even if you just go to a big box store, they'll have them there, and those are food grade.
The next one, eggplant. Eggplant, 1 per 5-gallon bucket or 1 per 7-gallon grow bag, kind of in that range. Works very well. Many different varieties of eggplant which you can buy. You can go to the garden center here in Milwaukee. You can go to Bloomell's. Your local garden center, independent garden center, still has plants. Check them out because they have already got them established. They're already hardened off. They're ready to go right in the ground. Not a whole lot of maintenance that needs to be upfront work for you. Soil, fertilizer, container, plant.
So then also carrots and beets. Any root crop is going to do well in a container. Root crops like that nice, loose, loamy soil. So if you have a container and you grow your root crops in there, they're going to be able to grow, expand in that nice, loose soil.
We're only able to successfully grow carrots in containers, yes. And you can go to the website, the WisconsinVegetableGardener.com, and search carrot planting. We've got a very successful method by using cardboard to suppress or to retain moisture around the seed coat to get a better 80% plus germination rate on your carrots. Beets and peas. Let's look at those. Beets
are another root crop option that you can put in a container.
With these containers, you want to follow the square foot gardening method to the best of its ability because that's a really good guideline. In order, like a 5-gallon bucket's about 1 square foot, so you put 16 carrots in a 5-gallon bucket.
Yeah.
About 9 beets, something. Well,
I think it's 9.
6 beets would be successful if you really want big beets, and we've done successful beets in containers as well.
Now, peas, I typically visualize peas being grown in the ground or raised bed, but you can grow them in a container. With that, you would want to plant them. You want to trellis them. So you need to trellis your peas, so you have to come up with a trellising system. It doesn't have to be fancy. You could take an old tomato cage, put that in there, tie some extra strings around it for the peas, and then you have your peas.
We've got a raised bed that we found just made out of, it's about 1 foot wide by 2 foot long on the porch. And I've got the tiny tom peas in it, which only get about 8 inches tall, very compact pea that is very prolific, and those are from M.I. Gardner. Peas you plant early in the spring and in the fall. They do not do well in the summer heat. Same as the next one here on the list, which is lettuce.
Right. So lettuce is another spring or fall plant, and just you don't need a deep pot for this. You could definitely grow it in like a hanging basket type of container. That's not a problem. But
we want to be aware that whatever container we grow in, the less soil we have in that, the less of the mass of soil, the quicker that that container is going to dry out. The more mass, the more water retention, the longer it's going to be between waterings. You can also mulch your containers with a variety of different items: straw, chemical-free grass clippings, pine needles. Put a little layer of sand on top of them. Pine needles or pine cones. I've seen that, and just whatever we can do to create a barrier to slow down the evaporation.
You could even do newspaper.
Newspaper, yes.
So
leeks.
Yeah, leeks. Those are kind of part of the onion family. Leeks. I don't know. A lot of people don't realize they can grow leeks in their garden. Some people think leeks grow in like bogs or marshes, but leeks are they're like onions. They grow in the ground, but they're just they look like a broomstick handle, like an
onion without a bulb.
An onion without a bulb, yeah.
And traditionally, the United States here in North America, we've been conditioned to eat just the white portion of the leek. The whole plant can be utilized as an edible plant. Many countries saute the whole thing up, for example, in a cooking example here. So just don't utilize that white portion. Use the whole plant up. It has the same texture, same flavor, same nutrient value. And finally, number 10 here, beans.
So you can grow bush beans or pole beans. If you grow pole beans, you definitely want to trellis of some sort.
And bush beans work very well. You can get 9 per square foot. Again, we've mentioned this on the program. Pole beans, if you're going to do that, they're going to produce 2 to 3 times more beans per plant compared to a bush bean plant over the growing season, simply because of the duration of time that the pole bean plant grows compared to the bush bean plant. So those are just some of the many different, just some of the dozens of plants in which you can grow in containers. Again, make sure the size is adequate, make sure you have enough moisture in it, and the plant can grow in full or partial shade.
For more information, please visit thewisconsinvegetablegardener.com.